Baseball in 1995 was weird, as the MLB obviously had their 1994 season end prematurely because of the players' strike, meaning there was no playoffs or World Series, leading many to kind of wonder what the future would look like heading into 1995 if there is one. And for a while, things were stale. But everything came together, and the MLB and the Players Association decided they were going to play 144 games in the season with a playoff and World Series. And let's just say 1995 got a little crazy. This year is infamously known as the year that Cal Ripken Jr. broke Lou Gehrig's consecutive games played record, which almost wouldn't have happened if either replacement players were chosen to play these games or if the season didn't happen as a whole, which again, both almost did happen. There was really a lot more that happened this season that makes this one of the best seasons in the history of the league. First of all, they added an extra wildcard team, so instead of just the 3 division winners going at it, it was now a wild card format, which I believe they had some form of that for a while. So actually, I messed up with that. It was 1969 when the MLB announced divisional play, because back then it was only AL, NL, and it was 2 separate divisions, so the winner of the AL and the NL divisions would meet in the World Series. But in 1969, each division, the American League and National League, were split up into 2 divisions, meaning that the winner of each division in each league would meet up in the championship series and play in a best of 5. Now, you had each league split up into 3 divisions, where the 3 division winners would make the playoffs, and an extra 4th team via the wild card would make it. That is how the new format was going to work heading into 1995 compared to the past. Not the way I explained it in the video. That was my bad. Now, there was more teams that could be competitive toward the end of the year because there was always an extra playoff spot in each league. Some of the projected division winners didn't even win. I mean, in the AL East, the Orioles and Yankees were expected to be the top 2 finishers, but yet the Red Sox won the division by 7 games over the Yankees, who ended up being a wild card team, while the Orioles didn't even finish with a winning record themselves. The AL Central was kind of what everyone expected. The Cleveland Indians at the time won 100 games of their 144 and completely ran away with the division, as the next closest team to them in their conference was the Kansas City Royals, who still finished 30 games back despite a second place finish. And even in the NL East, the Atlanta Braves winning the division by 21 games over the Mets and Phillies was no big surprise, but the NL Central did kind of have a surprise as well, as in 1994 the Houston Astros were actually playing good ball before the strike, and a lot of people thought that they would potentially be the favorites to win in 1994, but no, they didn't even make the playoffs. The team that came out of nowhere to make the playoffs was the Cincinnati Reds, who hadn't been to the playoffs since the start of the 90s in 1990 when they had won their last championship.
And Myers bringing it, and the pitch is hit in the air, foul, off first, Benzinger backing and calling, and the 1990 World Championship belongs to the Cincinnati Reds.
But these Western divisions in the AL and NL got really crazy. These were the 2 divisions where instead of 5 teams, they had 4, so, you know, there was a little bit more competition that was dealt in there. In the NL West, it came down to practically almost the final day of the season, as San Diego at 70 and 74 only stayed competitive for a little bit, but in the end missed out on the playoffs. Instead, it was a division battle between the favored Los Angeles Dodgers and the expansion Colorado Rockies. That's right, in just their 3rd year of existence, the Colorado Rockies had a chance to take the NL West. Now, they didn't do that, losing out by 1 single game to the Dodgers. However, the Rockies still beat out the Astros by 1 game for the wild card spot, meaning that Colorado Rockies, a team nobody thought would do anything, was going to the playoffs for the first time in its franchise history. But the craziness of the AL West is where things get so interesting. It was a 3-team race. Even the last place Athletics, who went 67 and 77, were only 11 games out. And the only other division they would have finished last place in was the also crazy NL West. The Texas Rangers at 74-70 finished 4.5 games out, and keep in mind this was a division that just the year before, every single team in that division had a losing record, and we were probably robbed of potentially a team with a losing record in a full season making the playoffs for the first time ever.
Great! Now let them have it!
You can have it.
But it was the unexpected race between the California Angels and the Seattle Mariners. The California Angels didn't necessarily have a great history of winning. They had a history of good players, and they had some pretty solid seasons themselves in the 70s and 80s, but weren't necessarily a team that was known to be contenders every year. And as for the Mariners, well, they were just kind of a team that didn't do anything. They had a few winning seasons, but never won their division, never made the playoffs, and there was a threat that they might even move after the season's over because it didn't seem like an approval for a new stadium was going to get done anytime soon. The Angels were running away with the division for the most part. Everybody thought that they were going to win it, but then they hit this slump, and by the end of the year, in the 144th and final game of the regular season, both them and the Mariners were tied at 78 and 66, meaning that they would have to go to a game 145, which in 1995 was basically the equivalent of a game 163, where you're not playing a playoff game, you're playing a do-or-die game, which kind of acts as an extra playoff game, because if you don't win this game, then you're not in the playoffs. Because at this time, the Yankees had already clinched the wild card, meaning that Seattle or California had to win the division to be in, and the loser would not even come close. And of course, Randy Johnson pitched a gem, and the Seattle Mariners, for the first time in their history, seemingly out of nowhere, won the AL West and were going to play in the playoffs.
The 1-2 pitch. Kay inserted. It's over. Right over the heart of the plate. Randy looks to the skies. That is covered by the dome and bedlam as the Mariners now erupt.
You blew it!
Now, this was a team that was very talented, had a lot of great hitters, and of course Randy Johnson at the top of the rotation, but I just don't think anybody saw this coming from the Mariners. But here we were, where the top 3 seeds, the division winners, were the Cleveland Indians, Boston Red Sox, and Seattle Mariners, while the Yankees were the 4-seed wild card team. And over in the National League, the Braves, Reds, and Dodgers were all the 1, 2, 3 seed, while the expansion Colorado Rockies were the number 4 seed. And of course, this meant that there was going to be some interesting matchups. The Yankees and the Mariners met in the ALDS, and it looked like the Yankees, who were favored in the series, were going to take it as they were up 2-0 in a 5-game series. But when things got to Seattle, it turned. And of course, in Game 5, after the Mariners came back to win Games 3 and 4 to tie it, this happened.
And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on the line down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it.
Meaning that in their first time ever making the playoffs, the Seattle Mariners were now going to play for a chance at a World Series in the ALCS, and this also stopped them from relocating, as after this series, a stadium approval came about, and Safeco Field would later come about, and that's where the team has been ever since. Then the young upstart Cleveland Indians team ended up beating the Boston Red Sox, meaning that the Indians and Mariners in the ALCS, something that nobody really saw coming, was a thing, and the Indians took care of business, as I mean, they were just the far superior team at that point, and lo and behold, no surprise, here they were. In the NL, things were different. The Reds actually took care of business by sweeping the Dodgers, meaning that they were going to the NLCS when nobody really gave them a chance. And of course, the Atlanta Braves took care of the Colorado Rockies in 4 games, although a lot of people were surprised that it wasn't a sweep and that Colorado was able to get that win in there. But keep in mind, Colorado would not go to the playoffs again for another 12 years, so this was just one of those seemingly out-of-nowhere blips that just kind of happened. And as expected, the Atlanta Braves beat the Cincinnati Reds in the playoffs, meaning that we got hey, the team of the 90s, the Atlanta Braves against the young upstart Cleveland Indians? Would it be the Braves, who were finally trying to win a championship for the first time since the 50s? Or would the Indians end their streak and win their first World Series since 1948? It was a World Series where a streak was going to be broken. And after seemingly getting there and not being able to pull it off, as this would technically be third World Series appearance in the last 5 seasons by the Atlanta Braves, after falling in the first 2 attempts in 91 and 92 in heartbreaking fashion, they finally came out on top, as in Game 6 they won a pitching duel 1-0, because of course they did. It was 1990 Atlanta Braves baseball where they had solid hitters, but this was around the time when Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox were in a rotation together, and it was just seemingly unhittable at points. I mean, when people look back at 1995, they think, wow, what a season, because there was just so many unexpected things that happened, from playoff teams to players having good years. It was so unexpected that it made the season fun, and it gave the league a little bit of parity for a little while, and especially after 1994 kind of ended abruptly. Even though baseball got a late start in 1995, it just showed you that people want baseball. They love baseball. Without baseball, nobody really has fun, and they showed that they were just so happy to have the game back. And when all this craziness was going on, people were tuning in because, whoa, wait a minute, the Colorado Rockies, an expansion team of 3 years, are in the playoffs. The Yankees and Orioles didn't win the AL East. The Seattle Mariners are in the playoffs. Like, what is going on here? And to this day, I don't really think there's been a season outside of maybe like a 2011 that's passed it, but I could be a little biased with that because I was 13 in 2011, was able to witness that with my own eyes, whereas I was not born in 1995, but I hear a lot about it and how it's just one of the craziest seasons to ever happen in the long history of Major League Baseball. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Would really like to hear your opinion on what you think about the 1995 season. Was it one of the most insane you've ever seen? One of the most unexpected? And if you were around during this time and remember it, what was it like being able to just sit back and watch it? Even if it wasn't like your favorite team, just seeing these other teams come out of nowhere after no expectations were given to them. Was it like, wow, wait a minute, we got some competition here? Or was it kind of like, wow, this is so unexpected, I'm having fun? But other than that, stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.